the most common mistakes that people make when it comes to intermittent fasting or time-restricted eating. Today, I'm going to share with you the biggest mistakes that can often lead to a plateau, results you're not happy with, or perhaps even weight gain. Hey, my name's Chalene Johnson. Thank you so much for joining me. This is my podcast, The Chalene Show. For those of you who also like to just listen to podcasts, you can listen to The Chalene Show on any podcast app. But I record these episodes on video, so if you're interested in seeing what it is I'm talking about, like referencing some of the studies that I'll be talking about today, you get lots of visuals. I'm going to show you like meals and food, and you get to see where I'm filming, which is in my house, and what I'm wearing if you care, and yeah, all that fun stuff. All right, let's get right to the biggest mistakes. Number one is OMAD, which is short for 1 meal a day. And just as it sounds, when you're doing OMAD fasting, you're literally consuming all of your calories in a very constricted, very restricted, limited amount of time. So for many people, it's like an hour and a half or a 2-hour window, which means that you're fasting for 22 hours. Many women, maybe this is true for you, they start practicing intermittent fasting, they get some results, they hit a plateau, and they're like, I know what I'm going to do. I'm going to double down. I'm going to shorten my eating window even more. So maybe you started out with like a 16-hour fasting window, right? So you're fasting for 16 hours from the time you go to bed at 10 o'clock until the next day at, say, I can't do the math that fast, 11 a.m., right? So you're doing a 16-hour fast. I hope that math was correct. If it wasn't, ignore it. You're doing a 16-hour fast and you start to get results, and then you do it for a period of time and then you stop having results. And what a lot of people do, especially women, is they're like, okay, I'm going to push my eating window further and further and further. And the next thing you know, they're pushing their eating window till like 6 p.m. and then trying to get all of their calories in this very shortened window. According to a study published in PubMed, consuming an entire day's worth of calories in one evening or one meal significantly increases fasting glucose levels, which heightens your insulin response. What does this mean? This means that for someone who's relatively healthy, this study found that women who condensed all their calories into this short window experienced metabolic dysfunction, increased levels of hunger hormones, significant nutrient deficiencies, and a significant increase in disordered eating, as well as decreased mental health benefits. So, if that's something that you've practiced, and oftentimes people, when they practice OMAD for a short period of time, like maybe in the first week or so, they might experience a little bit of weight loss, right? And then you get excited about it. You're like, oh, OMAD, eating just one meal a day, it's working. So they double down on it. But what you don't realize is the long-term detrimental impact that's going to have on your metabolism. I mean, it's just not healthy to push all those calories into that shortened window. And why is it then that some people experience a degree of, I guess you could call it success or weight loss when they do practice OMAD initially? That is because initially you're not used to eating that many calories in that shortened window. But eventually your body's going to adjust. And even if you're decreasing your calories, your body is going to slow its metabolism. And the research shows it's not ideal. The number two mistake that women, especially over 40, make when they're approaching intermittent fasting is not adjusting their calorie requirements. Now, here's what we want to consider. Intermittent fasting is something you are likely considering or have likely practiced in the past because you understand all of the incredible health benefits. For example, autophagy, anti-inflammatory effects, improvements for cognition. There's so many benefits to intermittent fasting. I've done previous episodes on it. You can check those out. I will link them below in our show notes. But if you're doing it, and one of the many reasons why you're doing it is also for either weight maintenance or weight loss, which I completely understand. I don't think that's the only reason why you should consider intermittent fasting, but let's face it. I mean, let's get real. That's why a lot of people look into intermittent fasting. It's really important that you recognize you still have to be in a calorie deficit in order to lose weight, right? And yes, we know not all calories are made equal. It's not just a system of calories in versus calories out. Like our hormones have a lot to do with this, etc. We can talk about cortisol, which we will in a moment. But if you're not creating a calorie deficit, you're likely not going to lose weight. And if that is one of your objectives when it comes to intermittent fasting, simply eating the same amount of calories but in a shorter window isn't necessarily going to give you the benefit, at least that specific benefit that you are looking for. Anecdotally, having worked with tens of thousands of women, helping them to get started with intermittent fasting, because there is an on-ramp, there is a right way to do this. You don't want to just jump into it. By the way, if you stumbled upon this video and you don't know the first thing about intermittent fasting and you want to make sure that you prepare yourself, that you step into it the right way, that you know all of the information and you know the many different varieties of intermittent fasting, I would love to suggest that you check out Phase It Up. Phase It Up is a program that I created to help women specifically who are 36 to 56, like perimenopausal women specifically. That I want to help you figure this stuff out without a one-size-fits-all approach. Like, that's so dumb. There is no one-size-fits-all approach. Anyways, one of the things that we help people figure out is if you want to do intermittent fasting, our registered dietitians will create a specific plan for you to phase you into it. So it's done the right way. Anyways, what a lot of people do is they jump into intermittent fasting because they've heard about it, they've watched a few YouTube videos, they're excited about it, and they don't recognize that they have to, like, the whole point of losing weight on intermittent fasting for those who do is that they're eating fewer calories. So if you're not adjusting your energy input or your energy output, you can't expect that you're going to have that specific outcome. Now, there's lots of other benefits to intermittent fasting, but let's face it, like I said, a lot of people look into intermittent fasting because they're like, I want an easy way to like drop some pounds without having to like diet. But the fact of the matter is, if I'm shooting completely straight with you, it's not necessarily about dieting, but it is about choosing the right kind of foods and then also realizing that you're probably eliminating breakfast at the least, which doesn't mean that you like now you push lunch and breakfast together and dinner and you're consuming all the same calories, but just in a shorter window. And as we age, as we get older, our energy needs are less. We aren't, for most, not all, but for most women, they're not burning as many calories as they once did. So listen, it's energy in versus energy out to some extent. So make sure you're creating that imbalance, that you are creating a little bit of a deficit if one of your objectives is weight loss. The number 3 mistake that most women are making when they're doing intermittent fasting, especially over 40, is that because they're eating fewer calories, they aren't thinking about protein first. Protein has to be first. And here's why. Insufficient levels of protein while you're intermittent fasting will result in loss of muscle mass. And muscle mass is what you need to live longer, to have a faster metabolism, to put on and maintain, not just maintain, to put on muscle. And you want to put on muscle because you want a faster metabolism. When you're not consuming enough protein, you're going to experience deficiencies in your nutrients. Like if your carbohydrates are too high, your proteins are too low, the body, it knows it needs these amino acids. We don't produce them ourselves naturally. You run the risk of your body basically cannibalizing your own muscle. Like your body will start using your muscle as fuel because you're not giving it the adequate nutrients it needs. You've got to make sure you're getting adequate protein because protein is what our bodies use to replenish and to restore. It's what makes us perform better the next time we go to exercise. It what gives you energy. It's what helps to develop your muscles. And you want great muscles because you want a great shape. As you age, ladies, I am here to tell you, you can change your shape. You can have a body that you didn't have before, but only if you put muscle where you didn't have muscle before. Cardio is great. Listen, I love cardio for the cardiovascular benefits of it. I love cardio because you're also, you're getting rid of energy in versus energy out. But cardio doesn't make your body look different. See what I'm saying? Like if you want to change your shape, if you want a smaller waist, stronger shoulders, leaner legs, if you want definition, that doesn't come from cardio. That comes from muscle. And in order to build that muscle, you need the building blocks, and the building blocks come in the form of protein. Quick interruption. First time I've ever done this. If you're not currently subscribed to the channel and you've watched this video and you're like, oh, okay, it's kind of, I could watch a few more of her, or maybe you've watched several videos of mine and you're not yet subscribed, subscribe today and then drop a comment and just tell me what it was about today that made you subscribe. And I'm going to pick the most interesting. I'm not going to tell you what the criteria is for interesting, because I want you to be authentic about the reason why you decided to subscribe today. And I'm going to pick one of you, and I'm going to reach out to you. I'm going to send you an email. I'll send you a notification or a message here on YouTube, so check your messages. And I am going to send you a Chalene Johnson's Favorites care package, just to thank you for giving me an entertaining reason why you decided to subscribe today. Okay, back to the episode. Now, depending on how active you are will determine how much protein you should have. If you're curious about how much protein you should have, I've done a whole episode just on that, and I share in that episode how specifically I make it really, really easy to track my protein and my macros, and it's a very relaxed approach. I'm over the whole like all the rules and all that dumb stuff. So if you want to check that out, I will link it below in our show notes. Lastly, when it comes to protein, when you start your meals with protein first, that's my general rule. Every time I sit down, I'm like, okay, I'm going to start with a big serving of protein, then my greens, and then whatever else I want. If I want to have French fries, I have French fries. If I want to have a glass of champagne, I'll have a glass of champagne. All of those things are okay with me. Your girl, if you're looking for somebody who's like going to make you walk the line and, not live life and enjoy food, etc., I ain't your girl. Like, I did that in a past life. It wasn't fun. I don't like hanging out with people who are like that. I'm sorry if that's you. I just, all the rules, like, live life. Get things in order. Like, it's the 80-20% rule, right? Like, 80% of the time, make sure that your meal starts with protein, get some greens in, and then have a little bit of fun. Make sure that you're always burning more calories than you are consuming, and you're going to be all set, right? But one of the reasons why, lastly, I want you to think about your protein intake is because it does impact your hunger hormones. Protein is far more satisfying than carbohydrates. I know you're thinking like, wait, Chalene, really? A chicken breast is more satisfying than a piece of cake? Well, yeah, actually it is. Okay, put it this way. You can eat 1,000 calories from a piece of cake, or you can eat 1,000 calories from a nice grass-fed, grass-finished steak, and you're going to be stuffed from the steak, whereas 1,000 calories from a piece of cake, you're like, I need more. At least that's how I am. So protein is a great way to keep yourself satisfied longer. The number 4 mistake that you might be making with your intermittent fasting is eating your last meal too late. When we eat our last meal too late, it disrupts our glucose levels, which disrupts our sleep. Even the digestive process can disrupt our sleep. And when our sleep is disrupted, our cortisol levels go up. I mean, you know how it is. Like, there's a whole hormone disruption cascade that happens when we're not getting proper sleep. So if you're pushing your eating window like too late in the day, you're thinking like, oh, I'm really doing good because I'm not eating until 2 o'clock or whatever it is. And then your last meal is within a couple of hours of going to bed. It's too close to bedtime. And that dysregulation is going to increase your cortisol levels, which makes you even more hungry in the morning. And just the act of changing your diet is stressful. Did you know that? Like, just anything, even if you're excited about it. It's a stressor on the body, and some stressors are good, but if we have too much of a good thing, then it's no longer good. So if our cortisol levels are too high or too low, it's impossible to lose body fat. It's just the nature's way of protecting us. So we always want to keep in mind our cortisol levels. Now, I'm sure you have heard, as have I, that you want to completely avoid intermittent fasting if you have high cortisol levels. That presents a few problems, and I've said that myself. But lately, I've been looking for research to support this claim. And I know we've got, even myself, I've got tons and tons of anecdotal research. Even for myself personally, when my cortisol levels were really high, intermittent fasting just wasn't working for me. Nonetheless, it's really hard to find. Please drop a comment below if you can point me in the direction of a specific study that looks at contraindication of someone with high cortisol and intermittent fasting? I can't find it. Common sense just tells me that's true. But the bottom line is this: fasting in general is a stressor. So if you're already under a considerable amount of stress, if you already feel like, or if you know that you have chronic stress, that you have, adrenal fatigue and very high cortisol levels, intermittent fasting might not be the way to go for you. And even though I have not been able to find a lot of research regarding this, I do know that when our cortisol levels are high, which is going to happen if you're eating just before you go to bed, then you're going to increase your cortisol levels. And when our cortisol levels are high, it's almost impossible to lose body fat. So here's what I want you to do. I want you to think about an eating window that allows you about 3 hours before you go to bed without eating. Now, a lot of people say your last meal, but if you're still snacking all the way up until bedtime, you're really not giving your digestive tract, you're not giving your body a true fasting window. So think about a window that works for you. If, for example, you're practicing an 18-hour fasted window, that would mean that your last meal would be at maybe, say, 7 p.m. You're going to bed at 10 p.m. So you've got those 3 hours to let everything digest and watch some good Netflix before you go to bed. And then you would begin eating the next day at 1 p.m. That would be an 18-hour window. If you're doing a 16-hour fast, that would mean that, again, if you finished at 7 p.m. to go to bed at 10, then the next day you would have your first meal around 11. But now I want to talk to you about the fifth, and in my opinion, the biggest mistake we women make when it comes to intermittent fasting. And it's this: failing to use common sense. We've been so conditioned to believe that we're going to get it wrong, that somebody else needs to give us a diet. We need a diet plan. We need to follow it exactly, right? Your mom probably did the cabbage soup diet, or I remember my mom doing a popcorn shrimp diet or something. What? And drinking diet tab. Anyways, my point is this: many of us have been conditioned to believe that we need to follow a diet exactly. Intermittent fasting isn't a diet. You want to think of it as a lifestyle approach. And my personal opinion is I've come so 180 when it comes to this stuff. I just think it's really detrimental to lose sight of your common sense. If you're doing intermittent fasting and your goal is to push it till 1 o'clock tomorrow, but you wake up and you're hungry at 11, friggin' eat at 11. Listen to your body. I mean, it's so much more stressful, and you lose your power when you're so controlled by rules and regulation. It makes no sense. I'm asking you to break free of those things. I'm giving you permission that if you're doing intermittent fasting, you're supposed to be done at 7 p.m., but your girlfriends want to take you out to dinner and they have reservations at 8, you better not be the one at the table who's I already ate today, and you're just drinking your water. Do not let me find out that is you, okay? You need to live your life. Knock that off. It's not going to make a big difference. Think about it. Common sense should tell you that's not going to make a big difference. Live your life, okay? Permission. We've got to drop this diet dogma. And if you're looking at intermittent fasting with these hard and fast rules, is it time yet to eat? You're missing the point. Because the whole idea behind intermittent fasting is that we, as a species, we didn't evolve in such a way that we're supposed to be eating around the clock. Yeah, I get it. Caveman and cavewoman, they didn't have access to chips and Doritos and Instacart and, DoorDash, and they could have food 24/7. Yeah, right. We were designed to be metabolically flexible, which means our bodies could shift into ketosis and burn fat as fuel, or our bodies could shift and start to burn glucose as fuel, right? That's metabolic flexibility. But even though we have access to food all the time, that doesn't mean that even caveman, when somebody brought home a carcass of meat to eat, people weren't you know what? I'm doing a intermittent fasting and I can't have that buck until it's 11:30. No, just use your common sense and don't get caught up in the rules, okay? Because I think that can be really, I know it was super stressful for me. And once I started really relaxing my approach and realizing like, I've got to trust myself and trust my body and use common sense, the weight came off. It really did. I think I lost 10 pounds just by releasing the stress of Diet Dogma. If you want to learn more about that journey, you can check out the episode I did here on how I lost 10 pounds and 10% body fat really without trying, without stressing, that's for sure. Lastly, if you want to know more about how perimenopausal women should be fasting perhaps a little differently than menopausal women, you can check out the episode that I did, or you can click right here to watch that. For the episode I did on how it is, I have a very easy approach to tracking my protein intake and getting as much protein as possible. You can check out this episode, which I will link below in our show notes. If you've stayed with me all the way to the end, and part of why you listen to me is I keep you company, I want to invite you to become a Patreon member. Now, hold on. I know you've heard of other people's Patreons, but I have literally hundreds of hours of audio that you can try and you can listen to it. Or you're just a little bit curious about who do I swear? And what do I really think about these fake influencers? And what's my real opinion on things? And some of the things that otherwise might get me censored here on YouTube, including my husband, he would definitely get me canceled on YouTube. If you're interested in that kind of content, you want to try it for free, you can check out Patreon 7 days for free by going to patreon.com/The Chalene Show. Right now I'm doing a deep dive series on the rise and ruin of Rachel and Dave Hollis, but it's not like the other ones you've probably seen on YouTube. This is different. I'm giving it to you from the perspective of an insider, someone who was running in those same circles, someone who basically has done a lot of the same things that Dave and Rachel did, and it has turned out to be a prolific piece. My favorite comment that I get from people is that they're like, I don't even know who these people are, but I'm riveted. Anyways, you can check it out 7 days for free. The link is below in our show notes. Thank you so much for being a subscriber here on YouTube. I love you. And as always, thanks for watching. Oh, there's my husband. There he is.